Welcome, everybody, to another Thursdays with Maurice. I'm your host, Elisa with the Rebel Crone, and I'm so glad you joined us today. And as always, if you follow this show, we don't know what we're going to talk about, but I promise you one thing is that it's going to be interesting, it'll be fun, and hopefully it'll be enlightening as both Maurice and I really seek to, I feel like making different principles and concepts and spirituality simple and easy to understand, just like really grounding it in our life experiences. So without further ado, welcome, Maurice.
Hey, glad to be here. Glad to be here for sure.
Yay. So typically what I do is I have something to start the conversation with, and then it takes on a life of its own. So today I want to start the conversation with a post you did, Maurice, the other day. And it was very interesting because you showed the pentagram and then it had a picture of a man, arms spread out and then flipped upside down, inverted, and then you put it together and you get the pentagram shape. And yeah, I was just thinking about that because a year or so ago, I spent a whole year in a apprenticeship with the Lineages of Light Mystic School with Elizabeth Seraphine. And it was very interesting because we learned all kinds of things in the mystic traditions. And one of them was we did learn some like specific ceremonies and rituals and stuff. And one had to do with the pentagram. And it was like, wow, when she brought that up, it's such a loaded thing because we've been indoctrinated to think the pentagram is what the dark witches do, is what, people use to cast evil spells and stuff. And so there's I think a natural fear or like if the pentagram comes up, this is bad. Well, as we know, most things in life that if we are presented, it's one thing by our educational system, media, etc. It's typically the opposite or very different. So I was thinking about that, Maurice, and I just wanted to say that when we did this pentagram, we learned this ritual sacred ceremony, it was one of protection. And use example like on your properties going around and you do a specific series of things and really kind of casting an energetic boundary around, where you're whatever it is. I used it in our property to really make sure that the good energies can move in and bad energies can move out. We can say dark spirits or whatever. You can go off in that, or you can just say, just to keep things uplifted, to keep things feeling good, however you want to quote it. But anyway, so I thought that was so interesting. It just called to my mind that, like always, these symbols, these potent symbols, because they represent something of the truth, that they can be used in many different ways. So that's what I wanted to kind of open up and we can kind of dive into, because I've got some questions I wanted to pose to you too, Maurice, just on symbols, in general. So anyway, you had said that you got some interesting comments back about that post, which I didn't see.
Right. Well, I actually I thought about that. That was actually, that post came from a friend in North Carolina, a girl named Linda B. And she's pretty good about shit like that. But anyway, it got me to thinking about symbolism. And in the conversation, some of the questions, a couple of people, a guy from North Carolina and a woman in the Philippines, not the Philippines, in what the hell's that other, Indonesia somewhere. A friend, and a British lady in Indonesia, another one, Amina is her name. And Jamie, for the hell of, for mentioning his name too, Jamie Robbins. You might even have heard of him. But anyway, I got thinking symbolism, I finally came to the point of it. Symbolism, the symbol itself has no power. It's like a tool, and it's how you use it and the meaning that you place upon it. So where does the power come from, suppose, of these symbols? You see the pentagram and you think, oh my God, it's a portal, or demons reside within, or the genie comes down if you're in some other country somewhere. The power comes from the intention and the meaning we place upon it. And the definition requires agreement amongst a group of people. And definitions, as you well know, change. Just like the what is it, the Nazi symbol, the
swastika.
Yeah.
Swastika.
Yeah, exactly right. That has different meanings throughout history. You know, everybody knows that, at least growing up in this country, it's the symbol of the Nazis. Okay, well, that's not a highly held symbol in this country. Hasn't been since 45 or 40, since the 40s anyway. But then you go back in through history and you find out, well, that symbol's been used by other cultures along the way for various other reasons, and not all of them are bad, and some of them are pretty darn good. Well, the same thing is true with the um, um, here I go being old and shit. The symbol that you just brought up, the one that we're talking about.
The swastika or
No,
the
no, no,
pentagram?
no, not the swastika.
Pentagram.
Yeah, the pentagram. That's it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Duh. The pentagram that has different meanings throughout history, literally. And then we go back. Well, that's the same thing as language, for crying out loud, isn't it?
Well,
Word use.
I think too, Maurice, I think that there's some symbols are more potent than others because I think it's the use of sacred geometry, which has to do with mathematics and the construct of things. So I feel like something like a pentagram is, and I am not at all knowledgeable in that area, but I feel like some things are more related to, they have more inherent power in them because they relate to something in the construct or the substructure of our reality. So there's something there that they're symbolizing something real, so something can come through it, but it depends how you use it. So you got just a neutral symbol that is reflective of something powerful. How are you going to use that power? Just like human beings, how do you use the power inherent in you of being an immortal and an avatar?
Well,
You've got
we're the creators. We're the creators. We're the ones that are doing it.
exactly.
We're the ones that are experiencing it as we are experiencing it. I've got a cat in this house. So have you. He doesn't experience life like I do, yet we share the same space and we get along really well. But I look at that and I say, my gosh, he does not experience the world. We're sitting in the same room, breathing the same air, in the same environment, and I have no clue as how he's actually experiencing it. So I'm interpreting what I think I'm seeing, but I don't really know what's going on within him, for instance.
Right.
So, and that puts us right back down to the thing of, well, it's an individual journey, every single one of us. And then I look. I'm the kind of guy that'll say, well, I can say the same thing about a fellow human being for all kinds of reasons. I have no right to assume that I know what they feel. I can interpret what I see to the best of my abilities to continue on doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have us think that we're all the same, but that's, the more I look at it, the more I recognize that that's not the case at all. We're each so uniquely individual. It's astounding to me. It gets to a point where I say, okay, I don't need to know everything.
Well, oh my gosh, it's so funny you should bring this up because this morning, a lot of times I'll wake up early. Sometimes I get up early to write. I'm working on my second book. Then other times I just pull up my notes, app thing on my iPhone, and because I'll have things come to me because it's like around 4:35 in the morning, and it's dark. It's this real creative time. I feel like all the energy around is so still, and I can really hear things and perceive and think super clearly. And so I had this like whole thing of notes I put in on this topic because I'm going to do a video on it later, Maurice. But what's come to my mind the last few days, I've been thinking about kind of a spiritual maturation process. And, initially when you're at the lower rung of things, you just like you judge, you tend to judge. Lower rung things you tend to judge. But the first step of the judging things is somebody does something, you go, oh, what a stupid idiot. That person's abusive. That person's a this, that's a that, just by what they do. Well, then you start to wake up and then you start to perceive the energies behind people and you can feel what's going on. So you may have a person that's sitting there, saying all the nice things and you're like, oh my God, they're being passive aggressive. I can feel that energy. I got them. I'm so developed because I'm sensing energies. Look at me. I've got this skill. I'm so sensitive. I've heard that off and on for years of people being like so self-congratulatory that they can sense energies and then they judge the energies. And it's like, no, like God, that's like one rung above judging things from the appearance of stuff. It's like there's so many levels past that. Okay, so you can perceive energies about people, but you think that's what's going on, but can you actually perceive what's going on at a soul level? Can you
No.
perceive that between what you think's the perpetrator and the victim, that in another life, maybe it was like that, and they're working something out karmically with each other. There's a whole line of things. Do we know like the person that's carrying that energy, like how they were treated as a child? How, because most people that have, most of our imbalances will come from a lineage, a family lineage, from maybe karmic things, from how we were raised, and then also like who we are as beings. I mean, there's set other factors, and we can't know. We can't know that. So we cannot judge things because it's very, very complex. Each person is such an intricate web of, this dimension, other dimensions. I mean, we are very complex beings. The oversoul, the immortal, is a multidimensional being that's got a lot of things going on, not just you sitting here, And so I feel like there's like another step would be a step of being humble, that I really don't know. How can I judge it? That's why we don't judge, And then coming in this place of compassion, a compassion for people because they're on their journey and it ain't easy here. Then we start getting to the other levels of compassion in love, or empathy and love. And so we go up way up higher in the matrix when we cross over from the judging into this being a safe haven for people and mirroring back to them what's right about them, holding that space. Anyways, I could go off on that for a while, but that was my like thing of notes. It was talking about that very thing, Maurice.
But what I've heard versions of that along the way quite a bit, and I know what you're talking about for sure. And what the way you're going is accurate. We really can't know, and there's actually reasons for everything. How even bad, what we would call bad behavior. We hear the term narcissist a lot. For instance, as a character, a personality trait. Well, there's what is it? Oh hell, I'll just leave it at narcissist. That's the extreme version of Me Tooism all the time, for instance. And that's not acceptable behavior in normal society or in a relationship. So you can sit there and find I almost want to say excuses for that behavior in a personality, but it still doesn't work with other people once it's figured out because it's deceitful. It requires the integrity factor is low, if you will.
Right. I mean, it doesn't excuse bad behavior,
that's
but
the thing.
if it's not your thing.
No, the thing is, though, there is such a thing. There is such a thing as bad behavior.
Totally.
And yes, you can explain it away and you can say, well, that's because this, and this. But you got to, that in a way, that's kind of making excuses for it too, isn't it?
Right. But I want to clarify because that's a really, really good point, Maurice, what I'm saying is not excusing that. I'm saying that people are working things out and they're working things out at the level that they are.
I got you.
But for me to judge that, it's not for me to judge. Now it's for me to deal with when it's done to me or it's done to somebody I love or it comes to my doorstep. Then it is something that I will address. And boy, I will address that because I have had my whole life, even as a little girl, zero tolerance for bad behavior. Including with myself,
right.
But even with adults as a little girl, man, I'd call adults out on it.
Well, that's why we have such people that make a living being psychoanalysts and psychologists and psychiatrists. They're the ones that sit there and can sit back, non-involved in an interactional way, and then they're the ones that can address that, and that's for self-help. For instance, for the person that wants to move out of that situation or is compelled to move out of that situation by some court order somewhere. Point being,
Right.
in normal interactions, we just have to deal with it. They're not there trying to change their behavior, for instance. And that's that bad behavior thing. So we don't have the luxury of sitting back as completely disinterested in a way, or
No, it's not just,
uninvolved
I
observers.
think
We're involved. So we have
we
to deal with it.
we are. So this is my philosophy on it. If it comes to me, and if somebody's going to treat me badly or pull shenanigans on me, I don't, I well, there's different, it just depends how it's being done. If it's an aggressive thing, then you've got to meet force with force. I'm
Right.
not going to aggressive back because I don't want to invite their energies in. So I don't want to go down to that level, but it's going to meet a force to be reckoned with. It's not coming in.
Yeah.
If it's an intellectual debate, somebody's coming in and an intellectual attack on things, I've got to discern, do they really want to know the truth, or are they just looking to make their point and it doesn't matter? They just want to be heard. You know how some people are, I just want to make my point, and they're not wanting to have a conversation. They're not open to listening to what you have. They could care less. So I really don't care what they have to say. You don't care what I have to say. Why should I care about you? I'm not
Yeah.
going to have the conversation. I'll walk away, because there's nothing, they're not open. But if there's an opening for somebody genuinely, you may not seem at first, but if you come up and you try to share something that would be helpful, and if there's an opening there, then for me, I feel like it's their time to hear. But if it's not their time to hear, if they're not ready, there's nothing you can say. You can talk all the rationale, you can spell it out perfectly for them in
Yep.
perfect understanding, and they won't have the ears to hear it. I ain't gonna waste my breath on it.
As soon as you figure that out too, and the quicker you figure it out, the less you have to contend with it. That's getting wiser as you get older or progress through your life path as you're living it. And that's the story of all of us, actually. Every
It
single
is.
one of us. That is the story. We come in, the game. You come in, you trust everything because you don't know any better. Then you learn not to trust because you get stepped on and walked over in all kinds of ways. And
Right.
you say, wait a minute. And then you're knocked back on your heels, and you got all these extra things coming in. Next thing you know, you got to survive. How do I pay my bills and that kind of thing, and family and all of this kind of stuff comes in on you. So you're dealing with that, keeping you away from progressing. And then of course, as you get, and you know the story, and you call this the Rebel Crone. Well, you got to get to a certain point to be a crone, time wise. You don't be a
Yes.
3-year-old crone. You don't. You might be a wise woman, but or some kind of being that isn't normal, like a normal human. But most normal humans have to go through a procedure, and it involves time, years we call
Yes.
them.
Yes.
And and for a woman, I've met really smart, wise women in their 20s. So holy shit, this is unusual as hell. And it is unusual as hell because most women and most men are too busy doing other things. They don't have time for that in their
I
lives.
think it's changing. I think it's changing, Maurice. I think
Well,
we
that
are
could be.
evolving. So I think there's more wisdom available
Well,
that
there
can
probably is.
translate
Yeah.
or knowledge available that can be translated into wisdom, or just,
Yeah.
people. There's just more there because of the path that's been hewn through, kind of the wilderness of current spiritual understanding. So I just
That's
think
the
there's a
thing.
lot
See, that's
more.
another thing too. I know I do, and I suspect you do as well, and probably most of us do it as well. We tend to view the world through the eyes that we've seen the world within, and that's over an expanse of time. Well, as the decades pass, one isn't the same. You can go into the history books, or you can go talk to somebody that's lived through it. The 60s weren't the same as the 50s, or the 40s weren't the same as the 50s or the 60s, and it's for damn sure the 70s weren't the same as the 50s. And but the 70s is already 50 years ago. Isn't that something?
Unbelievable. How did that happen?
Yeah,
I,
it doesn't stay stuck in time like a movie or something.
oh my God,
The
it's so
80s
funny.
weren't the same as the 70s, and there's a lot of women and men in their right now. They're in their late 50s and 60s. Well, their 50s and early 60s that were viable adults, or damn near viable adults, in the 70s and 80s.
Mhm.
That's 40 and 50 years ago. Well, there's also the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now here we are halfway through the 2020s. And the world has changed just as drastically on them as it did on me from the
Oh,
40s to
maybe,
the 90s.
yeah. Even more so because I feel like the distortions, it's like one, like you have the two halves to the whole, right? We've got the
Right.
dichotomies here. So as much as I feel like there's these really wise spirits coming in, they talk about all these kind of indigo children, these
Yeah, I've heard
savants,
that.
these
Hmm.
all this stuff, but they just come in knowing more. It's like, to use just the term, the veil is thin, we'll just say the veil is thin, just as an expression,
I
is that
understand.
more is available because there's a thinning, and we're not as heavily cloaked in darkness, so to speak. So there's more available. But on the other hand, the other side, you have more people spinning off. I feel like that the whole, like, you look at the whole idea of what technology has brought wonderful things, but it's also made a lot of technological addicts, people with a lot of ADD, ADHD problems, focus problems. You have just a whole other host of problems that have come with certain advancements. And so we have a splitting,
Well,
real
we on that
of
line, you can look to the technology too. I grew up in an age of analog, and you hafted yourself. But we both watched it switch over to digital, and the arrival of the computers, and that's all speeding up, just like what you're talking about. That's through technology and communications. It was slow by comparison. The further back in time you go, you don't have to go back really that all that. I mean, even in my
yeah.
lifetime, actually parts of America, if you would believe it, when you were young, were just as backwards, or as they say in the mountains, backwards. Um,
Checkers.
backwards, yeah. They leave the W out. The point is, just a little side effect there. Um, Even in the 70s and early 80s, there were people that I worked with that did not have indoor plumbing in their homes.
Mm.
I mean, that's in America in the 70s and 80s, and you were around. You were growing up in that time frame. There's probably somebody somewhere in some far off, that still shops at a grocery store some kind of way in America. It certainly isn't in a city. That's been pretty well taken over by, quote, the machine, if you will, of society and cultural advancement and all of that thing. That is going on too, and it's going on at a heightened and speeding up pace, as we well know.
Yeah, yeah. And with it
Everywhere.
comes advantages and disadvantages,
Correct.
challenges.
Yep.
Just like we were saying with everything, how we view like things like symbols, the potency of them. It's like things happen in this world. And we've talked about this. We haven't mentioned this subject in a long time. I think it was like early on in our conversations about the inherent neutrality of the world of form. The world of form is literally neutral. It's neutral.
And I agree
It's
with that. It literally is.
think about, I want to just say pause a minute for people that are listening to this to really think about this, that the world around you is neutral. There is not an inherent meaning in it until you give it meaning. It's
Correct.
just things. It's just things out there. People, and you can even extrapolate that to people. People are just doing stuff. Like you're viewing things. Is I to really like part of my maturation process in the last few years is really honing in and working at keeping this, coming to a place of neutrality. If somebody's telling me a drama happening in their life, instead of like, oh no, he did what? And then he said what? Or she did, and I get all like worked up. And no, I just sit back and it's just like, well, for one thing, I don't really care. I mean, not in a bad level. I love, but I don't care. It's not my drama. So I stay out of the drama and I can listen from a super neutral place. And then I can speak from a place of a neutral observer and I can bring perspective into it. You know what I mean? But
I
when
do
we
know
get
what you mean. Yep.
worked up about stuff and we're like, oh, it's, you work up in the drama, people's stories they put on the things, the neutral things, then it's just, you get tangled up, you get tangled in the web of Maya.
You certainly do. Yeah. Yeah. And you have it. The thing is, we have a choice. We don't have to get stuck into it, but but it
Mm.
but it is appealing and compelling. It's like horror movies, for crying out loud. Yeah, they scare people, especially well, they're intended to scare you. And people
Mhm.
still go to them because they enjoy the excitement of it. Well, there's thrill seekers. There's people
Okay,
that
well,
love that kind of stuff.
I haven't been able to remain neutral in horror movies because I have super vivid imagination. It's one of my skills as an artist, and the way I create is just this heightened visual capacity, And so when I go to these things, it's just like anything I see is things I watch on TV. I'm really careful because it is I'm there's a sensitivity I have to things like that, and I can sit there and look at it. Okay, so it's just on a set and there's cameras around and all this, but there's still an effect about it. I just don't want even that visual imprint in my mind. The few horror shows I've seen over the years, very, very few images. I still sometimes those things they have the power. They would come up and it's just like, well, get away.
I
That's
don't like them either, so I don't watch them.
oh,
That's choice. That's
yeah,
that's the one thing we do seem to have individually. We choose what we involve ourselves within. We
yes,
do. A lot of times we don't recognize it, and that's part of the maturization process. To realize that you actually do have control of, you do have choice in all engagements, and
yeah.
you're not drawn into it. You at some point or other you said yes.
Maurice, this is so true. I have this, and I'm sorry if people have, if I'm happy they've listened to my videos because early on I used an example often, and that was just like like you look at life, and let's say you're dealing with another person, whatever situation, and you can
Mm-hmm.
look at like you're playing a game and you're volleying back and forth and you don't like the game, but yet you're returning every serve and you're hitting back and forth. Well, you have a choice. You have a choice to stop. You can
You
just put the
do.
racket down and say, "Nope, I'm not going to play with you." And the other person's sitting there and they'll still hit balls over to try to hit you and see if they can't get a reaction. But then you have another choice. You can walk off the stinking court. You don't have to stay on the court anymore. You can exit game. You exit stage left. Get off. You've got like choices, and people think just because they have an emotional reaction to it, then I've got to deal with it. No, you don't. It's just an emotional reaction. They just hit you with the ball. They found that button. Boo, they hit it. You don't have to respond. You can turn and you can turn the other cheek. And that's what I feel like the lesson of Master Jesus talking about turning the other cheek is just like, it's not like, oh, hit me again. It's just like, yeah, no, didn't work.
I think that you said a word there. It went on by, but I caught it, and I was buttons. I've heard that phrase all of my life, and it's true. There is not no physical button, but there's something within our personalities, our spots that we haven't resolved within ourselves some kind of way. We call them buttons. So, and you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean when I say it. Everybody knows what I mean when I say that. Somebody pushed your buttons. Well, if you'd resolved that button, it wouldn't be there to be pushed anymore. Literally, whatever it was, whatever it is. And how do you remove a button from it? You address it, you face it, and you
Yeah.
resolve it within yourself. It isn't because somebody else did it. It's you're the one that walking around with that button. So you're the only one that can get rid of it for yourself.
So true. So
Now, how
true.
you do that, well, then we got gurus and we got psychologists and we got friends and we ask around, but in the end, all we can do is make our own decisions and address it ourselves.
If you want to get over like a button, a place you're reacting, you're feeling victimized by something, there is no perpetrator out there. It's all within you. You resolve it all in here. I know from my experience and many, many other people's that when you're ready, the teacher will come, the information will come. So when you're ready to move beyond that, it'll come to you in a way
That'll
through a friend talking, through a something, it just, you're not going to be left high and dry with it. If you're ready to change that, know that there's going to be, there'll be ways
there
available.
is a way that is the weird thing about life that I've experienced it myself. A lot of things happen that I don't see coming, and they're perfect in the moment that they arrive. And the more I'm kind of going in that direction a lot anyway, personally. But I will say, looking back, it does work that way. It actually does work that way, even though it doesn't seem like it in the moment, especially in the heat of the moment when you're in the middle of a confrontation or whatever the hell you're deeply emotionally and physically engaged within. That's what you're paying attention to. You've got your feet in the dirt, your hands in the dirt, and you're not
Yeah.
standing back looking at it. You're fully engaged in the sense
It's,
of the situation that's at hand. And
yeah.
what we're trying to say is, yes, that does occur, but there is another way of looking at things, and the way you do that is eliminate these traps that are already there that most people fall into along the way and get caught in. We want to get rid of those
It's
traps, or
true.
at least expose them for what they are.
Because it's like when you're having, okay, somebody's behaving like an a-hole,
Yeah,
and you're just like, and so you're, yeah, and they are an a-hole, they are a jerk, so it's really easy to point the finger that they're a jerk, but that's not the point. Them being a jerk isn't your problem. You aren't going to change them. But did it push your button? Because there's a different flavor of a jerk out there that they do their thing. You're like,
yeah.
it doesn't bother you. Why
Well,
did that version of a jerk bother you?
that's so he or she will find somebody that possesses the button that they're out there to trigger.
Exactly, exactly. So it's not like, all jerks bother you. It's just there's a certain type of ones that do, but that's about you. If the person pushes your button, no matter how badly behaving or how in the wrong they are, it pushes your button.
Yeah, that
And
part is
that's
true.
yours to deal with. That's what to look at, folks, is just like is not to worry about who's behaving whatever way, because it's all a mirror to you. Your world is your mirror. My world is my mirror. If something's not working for me, it's not working for me. It's telling me something about Elisa. Maurice is going to tell him about him. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful gift back. We just have to, we haven't been trained, as kids, we should have been trained and educated on this, right? I mean, this is
right.
a skill of life,
Agreed,
is that
agreed.
this is
And it
this.
doesn't seem to be well. It doesn't seem to be formally trained very often anywhere that I've ever been. There may be
Yeah.
some monastery on a hill somewhere that knows all these secrets and raises kids, that way. But I've not experienced it, nor have
You
I
know,
heard of it actually.
Yeah,
Except
no,
in
it's not. And
tales. Oh
it's so
yeah,
fundamental. It's so fundamental to living. Like there's and yeah, it is when you learn a spiritual truth. Like you hear something, you apply it, now you know it. And typically it's just like once you know it, you're like, that's like so easy. Like, why didn't somebody tell me that? Like when I was growing up, it would have saved like so much, But we're just, that's been hidden. That's, I think, one of the travesties is that the real wisdom keepers in a village, in a society, these smaller groups of people that the elders did carry wisdom through living and they taught it to the young. Now we there's been a society cultivated where getting old is a bad thing and you're like and then you get pushed aside, and
right.
it's all about the youth and all this. What they've taken away, like, is the youth, their educational system, which is their elders, hence the Rebel Crone.
and
We
and
got to
that's
speak
your
up.
that's your counter to them. That's what you're
Yeah.
doing. You're offering your counter to what they generally offer. And yes, you have a small audience. You still have an audience, which is great. And
Mm-hmm.
listen, even 100 people, my God, that's a whole room full of people you get to talk to every week, and you have more than one program. You do other things. You don't just do it with me. And so it's important to what you're doing. What you're doing is important, and you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because that's what you want to do. That's who you
What
are.
money? What money?
There aren't, yeah. Well, I don't do anything for money either anymore. I I just don't.
It'll be nice someday that there will be that the value of what I am sharing will be compensated with other values. That's fine. That's fine. If it doesn't, I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it as an expression. My call, Maurice, to step up to the plate and to, and to do the Rebel Crone. I came up with the words for it, but there was a calling in my heart. Was I'm getting older. Yes, I'm about ready to turn 64 years old in a couple of weeks, and a
Wow.
week actually.
You sure
And
don't look it.
well, I don't feel it most of the time. um, but the calling was to start. It was time to start speaking my wisdom, because I've worked hard at it over a course of a lifetime. It hasn't been easy, and I've worked diligently at looking at what the truth is behind things. And I've gotten to a place in my life, and I know some things. And so it was like that call to start to share it. And as I start listening more and more to it, it's like, wow, this whole thing of getting old and just going by the wayside, that's a tactic. That's a tactic that's being imposed on us, that's not natural. It's not helpful to anybody, to the family, to the village, to the community, to the larger picture. So I thought, well, I'm gonna start speaking my truth. But you know what, Maurice, I have to confront all the time is these little, like the little devil on the shoulder, the little demons inside that want to, or wherever they are, that wanted to say, well, who are you to do that, Elisa? What do you know? What do and I still face that, and I know how to deal with it, but I still sometimes have to confront that. It's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to say what my truth is. Now, I will work at being very clear about, and I won't put a video out that I don't feel like resonated deeply within me based in my experience. So
That's
sometimes
a
I
button.
make a
By the
video
way,
and I won't post it because it just doesn't come across. Or I do one, it's like, no, I got to think about it more.
that's
So
a
I try to
button.
keep it.
That's a button that you still have. And I can
Yes.
tell you, you're not unique in that one.
Yeah.
Actually, we all possess it at some measure. Again, I've said this before. Women in particular, as I've experienced them, through the decades, the younger ones, it's really heavy because you guys are indoctrinated with it. You in and of yourselves, you're not worthy. That's what society fucking teaches you, starting in the family. Who are you? In order to, the real you is not sufficient. You've got to be some kind of image, and hence you go into the beauty thing, which is, it is what it is. And I'm a guy, so I sit there and enjoy the hell out of it. But I also see that you actually are more beautiful just being natural. But society doesn't preach that, and it takes a long time apparently for a woman, especially in that regard, to accept that reality. But it is true. It really is
Yeah.
true.
It
Uh,
is, and that's why I brought it up, Maurice, is because I know that this is very universal. It's not just me.
no, it's
It's
not
it's
just you.
it's
That
the
that is
it's the
that
who are
is.
you to do it.
Listen, men have their weaknesses too. But it's not
It's
it's not the
different.
same. It's different. It's similar, but
Yeah.
it's different. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying, "Oh, I'm perfect and you're not." That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just that particular one. That's a button that most women carry, and they need
Yeah.
to address it some kind of. Once they resolve that one, they become freer, and they open up even more. They become more beautiful.
Oh,
If
thank you,
that's
Maurice. That is so, that touches my heart, and I hope it touches every woman's heart that's listening to really take in Maurice's words, about the maturing as a woman, like truly maturing, not just getting old. Because
yeah,
you can
that's
just get
true.
old, but really maturing with your age is where our beauty comes from. I
Hmm.
have a core group of friends right here in Santa Fe, and there's actually four of us, and we get together. I'm getting together this Sunday we do it once a month, and we hang out, just us women. And I'm the youngest. I'm the absolute youngest. They're all like late 60s, early 70s. And I'm telling you, they're beautiful, amazing women. And I just find like the women of my peer group and up, there's the ones that have really, grown wise and have aged well. It's not that they don't have health challenges or things, but they've aged well inside. I mean, they are such incredible people. I mean, their self-awareness and what they've been through in life. Oh my God, we could just sit and we just talk and laugh, and it's irreverent, and it's sacred, and it's just the whole ball game of everything. And I really, really appreciate that. Now
You're
none of them
lucky to
have.
have that too, by the way. And I know you know that. You're
Oh
lucky.
yes.
All four of you are lucky to have yourself, each other.
Well, this is
And I
another group
guarantee
I'm
you, every
talking
other one
about.
in that group feels the same way.
You know
They
what,
have.
Maurice? This is even another group I'm talking about, is right
Oh,
here. And then I've got my errant friends
oh
up
yeah,
in
I
the
know.
Taos area, and that they're actually more my age, because I think Tony
I
and I
know.
are exactly the same age, or maybe 1 year off, 1 year difference. And then Kestrel's like 1 or 2 years, and you know, the other one's like quite a bit younger. Anyways, but we're still like, it's the point is that as we get older, and one of my I shouldn't say my mission here, but I would like to be an example of, is that coming into our age, however you're felt called to share your wisdom, is to do it, and to know that it's important. That it's important that we speak up through words or action, or whatever it is that we're doing. What I'm called to do is unique to me. That's something that comes naturally and is fun for me to do, because so it's part of my expression. It's all different there, but the point is that for men and women, is the world really needs these touchstones, these pillars that go right through the muck, right through all the lies and muck, that are grounded in a solid place of understanding. you know um yeah, because otherwise it's just, things are spinning off so badly
Well,
nowadays.
you don't want to get sucked into a vortex of dissension, bitterness, down a downward spiral. And all I'm saying is it's possible. That's not the inevitable outcome for everybody. It is possible to see through all of that. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist and it's all fake and fantasy. It's real, but you don't have to experience it if you don't choose to experience it. And that does not mean that you just don't ever look at it and stay oblivious to it, because it's still in your present. You have to deal with it. So deal with it wisely. That's even better than dealing with it intelligently. And intelligently works pretty good, but wisely works even better.
it's that's a great point, and it's like, it's just different levels of handling things. I find, like, where as I've gotten older, this real powerful place, like I was saying about the place in neutrality, but there's a place that if there's a disruption going on, or let's say a disagreement or a misunderstanding between some of my friends, if I can just stay very neutral and loving towards them, towards the parties involved, that is a powerful thing that anchors them, as opposed to, like, all right, then what they said this, and then they said that, and and getting caught up in the drama, and then trying to figure it out, analyzing it, and then, where should I put my weight in as far as my opinion, and it's to just really stay that out of it, and to just maintain, love the different parties, and just love. And if they want them to offer a little advice to make it easier for them, but not get involved in the situation at all. And that, I feel, is like super powerful.
Here's
Super
something
powerful.
too. Here's something too, and that it really is worthwhile bringing or talking about for a few minutes. The difference between intelligence and wisdom. I look at it, and I'm just talking off the top of my head right now, or through whatever. It's not because I had something prepared. It's not. I know about intelligence. I know about being taught how to, how to know the difference between one thing and another, and what works, what doesn't work in this situation, that situation, the other situation, and that's intelligence. That's mental weighing potential consequences in advance, and which one works better, and which is more accurate to the situation, and which isn't. That's using your intelligence. And that can be taught. There are tactics. You even used the word tactics. There are tactics to intelligence. War colleges exist that way. this tactic works better than that tactic under this circumstance and that circumstance, whatever. The point being, though, wisdom is not taught.
Right.
It's shared, but it's never taught. It's weird. It's weird that way because you don't get wisdom by being taught it. You learn it, though, or you become it, or it becomes you. And I don't know how that actually works, that I can express it in language, but I'm telling you, it works. It comes. And the only way it comes through experience. And it comes to I'll say a couple of things about that, though. You have to have an open heart, an open mind, and a willingness to say yes.
The willingness to change, right?
And the willingness to change. You're right there, too.
If you're set on your position and you're determined to be right about something, you can't play the game. You can't play the wisdom game. If you have to be right about something, if you for sure that person did that and that was this, and you're judging all this stuff and you need to be right about that, you can't play. That's your application. Come back, try again later. You ain't gonna get in. That's not how you get into it.
You have an open mind, an open heart. You want it. You're willing. You have a willingness to say yes, and you don't. And you recognize you don't have to be right all of the. That means you can learn.
Yeah.
When you're open to new information, that means you're saying, I'm open. I don't know everything. I want more. Give me more. You're saying yes to what comes, as opposed to I'm going to defend myself and protect where I am right now, and nothing goes beyond that. Anything intrudes, I don't want to hear it. Don't talk about it. Poof. Well, that's his mind, isn't it?
That's so funny you say that, Maurice, because that is one of true confession here. That's one of my challenges. It's still a challenge. It's not as bad as a challenge it was when I was younger, but it's a stinking little rebel inside. It's like, you're not going to tell me what to do. Who are you? I know. And that serves me well to rebel and not to fallen into any of the, the roads that were laid out for me, to fall into any of the ruts that society and stuff. I rebel, and I've always done my own things because I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to follow. But it also trips me up sometimes when people try to tell me, share their wisdom. I feel that little rebel gets up there and goes, Rrr. So I have to constantly
that's life.
Now.
That's life. Hey, it's the same thing for all of us, right to the very end, I'm sure, where there's always a situation where looking back, we could have done it more smoothly or better. A lot of times we just say better, but more smoothly, more effectively, more efficiently, quote, more
quicker,
yeah,
more quickly.
Yeah. So that's the thing. We'll never reach perfection, but we can get better.
Yes.
And getting better seems to be the best way to go, it is.
Do your best.
Do your best, and don't be overwhelmed. That's the one thing. Do not give up. And if that doesn't mean my first job, whatever the hell it was in and it wasn't really, but in a mine somewhere. If I lived in Pennsylvania, which I didn't. If you never walk away from the mine, that's all you know in your life. It's the ones that walk away from it that find out more about the world. And most people, they find a spot where they say, okay, I've done enough. And then when they do that, they basically stop growing, they stop living, and they start dying. Literally, they do. It may take them 20 years, but there's a steady downhill decline. If not physically, and it usually is physically, but it's not always. But it's just a withdrawing from engagement and involvement with the external world, and they shrivel up and leave. The
physical is the tail end of the sequence of the dog, so to speak. It's the tail end. So all these other things are atrophying, and it's going to come out physically too.
Eventually,
it just is, because you're not, the life energies aren't coming all the way through.
You've seen that in your life, even in your early 60s, like you are. You've seen people that We're in your contemporaries that have already started down that path.
And totally, oh my gosh, and it's entropy rules this world in a sense. It's like
Mhm.
it's part of the whole things. We have birth and death. We have beginnings and endings. And then it's this birth, and then there's entropic process that goes into death. So that is part of the cycle of this planet right now.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe that changes later because our bodies definitely are designed as regeneration machines, but where we are right now, that's what has happened. So, but how can I do that in a graceful way?
Bingo,
How
because that word was right in my head and I was going to
was
use
it
it too.
really?
You can do it gracefully or you can do it clumsily, and it's your choice.
Yes, you can be vital all the way through. Like I am still learning things. I'm open. I tell you what, Maurice, at my age, I feel like I am on the cusp. Watch out, because 2025, the Rebel Crone, Alicia Chastain, I'm taking off, man. There's things I'm gonna do, and it's gonna be such an exciting year. What exactly? I don't know. Does it matter? Nope. Because I'm bringing it in because I am challenging myself. I'm putting myself out there. I'm dreaming big. I'm putting it into the field, and I'm vibrant. I'm as vibrant or more vibrant than I ever have been. And I'm in an aging body, so I have to do certain things to I can't do certain things I could do when I was younger, and I have to do certain things to help take care of it and
Correct.
be more conscious of various habits and stuff,
No,
you
you do
know.
the right thing, no. You will. You'll
But
do the
yeah,
right thing.
yeah. But anyways, but it's just this I think the whole thing of aging, once again, like when you said the word mine, being a miner, it's like, oh my God, we are mining for gold in through our minds and in through our hearts. So I was thinking of mind, and even going back to like symbols with it, of what we put on things, it comes in through our mind stuff and our imagination, and it's all interpreted through that. So I have a choice to look at aging in any way I want to,
You
because it's
absolutely
just
do.
aging. It's just aging, and I choose to see like my reality. It's not like a choice. My reality is I am more by like I'm peaking in my, I'm coming to my, it hasn't happened yet in the past. Right now, it's like the convergence of a life lived that's like there's something super potent that I can do now. I couldn't do earlier in my life. And I'm excited to see what that's going to be. Um, so instead of like, oh, just drifting off, I look at it in the complete opposite. And everybody listening is this is you can do that too. Look at the things that you're accepting, you have trepidation about. Oh, because a lot of people watching this are going to be more my generation-ish. They're going
Probably.
to be around this 50s, 60s, 70s ish, kind of probably more 50s, 60s.
Probably.
But just check yourself, check and think like your thoughts. Like what belief do you have about aging? Like, the body's going to go downhill and I'm just going to get older and uglier because I got wrinkles and I'm getting grays and I'm getting like, and it's harder for this, it's harder for that. Oh my gosh, you're just defining your reality you know you can get all those things and you can still be beautiful. It's beauty, as you said, it comes from within, this acceptance of yourself and acceptance of all that stuff, and really letting your light shine, your wisdom shine. Anyways,
Yeah.
I think I'm blabbing there.
No,
Whereas when
you're
you
not
get
at
like
all. You're
talking
not
about it.
blabbing at all. That's
Okay.
good information. And if nothing else, you get to say it out loud.
Yes, I do. Exactly. I'm gonna say it out loud, dang it. I got my own YouTube channel. I can say what I want to say. If people like
Yep.
it, start your own. Say what you want to say.
Exactly true.
That's so funny. But there it goes back to this ultimate thing, free will, choice. You have a choice. Everything out there is, I mean, it's neutral. It is all neutral. I mean, aging is just aging. Are you going to put like fear on it? Are you going to put excitement on it? Are you
You
going to look
choose.
forward to it? You can choose, and it'll be your reality, which one you choose. Sometimes you can jump into reality just like that. And other times it's a little bit swinging the ship around because it's been going like this. And you got to adjust course and swing in another direction. Um,
I hear the yeah buts already in my mind. I can hear the yeah buts coming out, maybe not from the ones listening, but the ones listening that understand exactly what the hell we're talking about, which is most of you, I know that already, if not all of you. Um, people that are gonna that if you were to tell them that, the first thing you'd hear out of them, yeah, but I can't, or it won't, and
You don't understand. For me, it's different. You don't understand. In my special circumstances, I can't because of.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's I man, that's the fallback position of so many people. Well, that's a choice too, but they don't. But they're afraid to make it because they can't predict. They think they need to control everything around them, and the thing is, you really don't control that much around you. Yes, you have a certain amount of control, but most of what happens in your life is new every moment. Somebody could knock on your door right now that you didn't see coming. You know,
Yeah. Oh my God, opportunity can come right out of the blue and boom, there it is,
yeah.
but you got to be in the flow of you. Be in the flow
Yeah,
of you.
if you're so busy protecting where you are and what you have, you will never escape that room. You'll never escape that room. At best,
Yeah.
you'll just shrivel up within that room.
Well, and that room's the room inside your head too, right, Maurice?
Pretty
Is
much,
that you're
yeah.
protecting your ideas and your concepts and your perspective on things, your opinions. All this stuff is like the altar that you're bowing down to is my thoughts. They yeah, they are your thoughts, but you have a choice and control, and they form up based in your intention, in your heart focus. I mean, these things can flow in and out. The mind is just there as a servant, right? The servant to the soul, a servant to the heart. And just because you feel something or you think you see it to be so doesn't make it so. You just made it so for you. But in the
Mhm.
big picture, is it so? No. And that's what you're saying about like all this, but my reality. And people hold on to that. Like, that is my reality. This is I worship this thing. Don't take it away from me. When you think
Right.
about it, anytime you say something like that, you have given your power away to it. You're saying it's bigger than you.
Bingo.
This,
That's very true. Yep.
yeah. And then
Yep.
you're getting something out of it. You say, what am I getting out of it? I mean, this is like all truth therapy. And I don't trust that particular classic trained psychologists or psychotherapists all can know how to do this. But this is where real therapy comes into. But in my opinion, is where, why are you holding on to your story? Are you willing to let your story go?
Boy, oh boy, is that a big one. As you were talking, and it is right in line still. You had a conversation with Kestrel over Christmas, actually, but it got posted last week.
Yeah.
Kestrel Andrus. If you wanted somebody that was set in a path in her life, and Kestrel's not a kid either.
No, she's my age.
Yeah, she is. And to describe it, my God, uh, she comes from a family with heritage in New York, right? So that's all that's on her. Plus, she's got a professional life. She's not just a store clerk. Not that that's bad, but she 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 got formally educated. She became a professional woman, psychotherapist for Christ's sake, with a practice. That 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 really cements you into a role in the society you find yourself living within. And then to do that for a period of 20 or 30 years, I mean, who the hell breaks out of that? And she had a family, she had kids and a husband and a house and
A big, beautiful house,
all that stuff.
lots of wealth. Yeah.
And at a relatively, as you would call it, and I would call it too, a rather kind of late stage in life, she walked away from it all. And she didn't do it because it was, I don't know how I wasn't in her
She didn't
shoes.
do
So
it
I
because it
don't
was
know.
working for her. It wasn't working for her anymore, right? So a
Okay.
big pattern breaks happen when things no longer work for you. And a lot of times, I think she spoke about there is like living the life of quiet desperation, living the slow death. And at one
Yes.
point, you're like, no,
Yeah.
some people will save themselves, and other people will just, you know, slide off downhill into the real death, the real transition, and this woman decided not to. This woman decided that no, none of that's worth it. She walked away from it all. And
And
was
of
very
course, I knew her
humbly
when she was doing that,
and
and holy shit, you talk about a big, that's a big deal to what
yeah,
she did, and yet here she is, and that's been several years since that's happened too. It's more than a
yeah.
couple. It's probably 5 or 6 by now.
I don't know if it's well, it's been a few, and not breaking any confidences, but sometimes you do a pattern break. It takes a little bit to restable out of that because it's such a massive shift.
Oh
And I
boy.
know Kestrel's coming into a point in her life where she's wanting to share that wisdom in a very specific and different way from helping the thousands of people she did in her practice in New York, as an executive coach and a psychotherapist, that she is now looking to, extend that to people that are really really ready to wake up and ready to break some significant patterns and would like some help in a way that is I would venture to guess she'll be able to use all the formal skills and training and experience and all that with her real life experience and the spiritual wisdom she has now
Yeah,
about
and
how
she's
to
got
do
an
this.
audience that'll accept it as such. They're not
Yeah,
going into a formal office situation with, where that whole 9 yards. They're actually meeting on the street, talking and sharing as human
yeah.
beings. And that's much, I can tell you from life experience. I never was one psychotherapist like her, but I know people who were.
Mhm.
Point being, when you interact with people at their level, on with them as them, it's so much more expansive and fulfilling and rewarding too, for that matter.
Yeah.
You just don't measure it in dollars and cents anymore. You measure it in inner joy. And you know
Yeah.
what? That feels good.
That's the real commodity going on here, folks,
Yeah,
is inner
that's the
joy.
deal. I guess we got to change this whole thing and say it ain't money, friends. It's not money.
It's not money. That's not going to bring you a bit of nothing. Nothing is not going to bring you anything substantive at the soul level, you
No,
know.
But
But I'd rather
it is
be,
it's comfortable. I mean, it
but I'd
helps to be
rather be
comfortable.
joyful and have a bunch of money in my bank account than be joyful and having none. Okay, let's
Agreed. Yeah,
be
that's
real
having the
about
best
that.
of both worlds, but they are two different worlds.
And they're not mutually exclusive. So that's another concept I think needs to be addressed, is that you can absolutely be successful with the energy exchange mediums of the world, whether it's you're doing green paper, plastic cards, crypto, whatever it is you're doing, you can be successful in that, and you can still not be caught into the land of Maya and the illusion in the whole holographic nature of the world. It actually is a holograph. So, we can have all of those things and still be completely autonomous and sovereign, and we can use it wisely. We can enjoy it. I feel like we're not here to suffer. This whole concept that I'm going to be spiritual, so I'm going to have to get rid of all my belongings, and I'm going to have to like
Yeah, go live on the street or
sit by the
something.
side of the road with a little, basket to have
Yeah,
tidings.
begging bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 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 no. I'm calling in great wealth into my life because I have great things I want to do, with it. And it'd be sure, and one would be is I like to have a beautiful home. I don't want to live in a tiny little home. I like having a nice size home. I like look around. I like having beautiful things around me. I don't need a ton of it. I don't need like homes everywhere. I
Yeah.
don't need it. That to me is just like a gross, misuse of wealth. But yeah, so I can enjoy those things, and I can help other people in real ways. And so that's I'm excited about, this round and manifesting.
Yeah, you don't need the Getty Museum or the Getty Mansion, for instance. By the way, which is pretty close to getting burned down right now in
Oh, the one
California.
in California.
Yeah.
Oh, that Getty Museum is pretty spectacular. I've
I
been there a
never,
couple of times.
I drove by it once with my brother, but I never went into it. But
Yeah, but it is tucked in. It is like there's all kinds of trees and
Oh
woods and
yeah, that's
nature
for sure.
around.
And
It's right
that's
in the
the
middle of the
general
hill.
area that's on fire out there. That's a big deal,
Wow.
by the way. Yeah,
Yeah, that's like a massive, there's a lot of money sunk into that building. It's pretty dang spectacular, I gotta say.
I'll bet.
Um, yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting, but
that's carrying that's going a little far. That and we've all been around, you know, in every town there's always somebody that's got the mansion on the hill, or they got a hill with a whole bunch of mansions if it's a bigger town.
right.
That there's a hell of a cost to pursuing that. You can't be talking about you can't really do what you and I talk about heavily and be that too. That's it's just too weighted. You've got because there's a cost involved when you get wrapped into that upward mobility to the point of that money is just a tool and it's power that comes with the territory, or you don't get into that kind of an environment. It's
I think you can, I think you can have that, but not be of that.
it's
You know what I
hard.
mean? You can have that,
The
but you're
more you
not,
commit to that, though, the harder it becomes because you got to sell
well,
more of yourself.
right. If you're gonna commit to, I want, that's what I want, but you can flow through you. So if those things are meant for you to have in it and it will truly be part of the plan and bring you joy, great, but you're in a flow where the money's flowing in. And I think, Jason talks about that, about
Yeah.
money and flow, his view of it. And I
I
agree.
understand that, but you know,
That's,
that reminds me of a story of a guy named Count Germain. You guys probably have heard his
yeah.
name along the way. That's almost like a figure that never really existed that everybody wishes did. You know, like the one that has got the best of both worlds. He's got all of this resources at his disposal, and he's got all of this wisdom and knowledge at the same time. And it's
And he
like
can live forever. And he can
and he
live
can live
forever.
forever. That's like well hell, nobody can do that except
No, but
this
Maurice,
historical figure that nobody can say for sure existed.
I think we can do that. I don't know if we can do it right now, but I think in the evolution of
Well, that's
spirits incarnate
possible.
Earth, we could create an Earth like that. Why not? Wouldn't that
Well,
be
that
that
wouldn't
kind
be,
of,
but it wouldn't be this Earth, would it? And we're still walking around on this Earth.
well, in its version, in its current version. No,
Yeah.
not in its current version. But I think there's versions that may manifest in the future that
Well,
could
yeah,
be
that's possible. It's for
absolutely
sure it's
that.
possible. But you got to be willing to say okay to it, or say, oh no, I can't. You know, I'm not worthy, or I can't do, and no, it never will. Well, you just close
I say
yourself up
okay to
to it.
that. I deserve that. I think everybody deserves that. If you want to, accept that, we can have all those things. Well, just
Well,
the point being that, you know, to have money and wealth and things flow to you, that it's and not go out and try to grab it. It takes I think is what you're pointing to. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to grab it and take it and to funnel it towards you. And that's
yes,
enough focus because you are like taking this stream going by the water. You're like, come to me,
yeah.
mine. And then you look like a Bezos of the world. And he's got like how many mansions, their real estate portfolio. Well, they'll never, and all the beautiful, I'm sure they're just decorated to the hilt with
Oh,
artwork and
yeah.
incredible furniture stuff. But why does that person, how will he ever go to some of those? Maybe once, but why should they have so much when the poor blokes working for them have like can't even pay rent on a little stinky little thing? I mean, that's just gross to me. That's gross misuse of energy, but that's people taking it. So what I'm proposing is that if you step into the natural flow of you and you allow what you need and what's going to be works for you to flow to you, now other people more may flow to them because they're designed in a certain way and they've got other stuff to do that'll take money. Other people maybe some less because I feel like there's like a design to the flow that if we got in the right position with it, we will have the perfect amount for what we need to do and what would bring us joy.
May
You
you
know,
always have enough.
yeah.
You
May
know
you
that
always
phrase.
have
I
enough.
think I even told that story once with you.
You
Yeah.
did. And I put it on the bottom of a whole bunch of my banners after that. May you always have enough. I
And that
love that.
actually, if you could actually come to a point where that's an acceptable state of affairs for yourself, it would ease a lot of frustrations that normally people carry around with them.
Yeah.
Not having enough or needing to do this to get that, and getting tied back into the mundane of the world. If you can breathe enough and say, I always will have enough,
Mm,
and just
have to
know
make some
that
of
and
those.
go with it and trust that that's true.
Yeah, I
I can
love
look
it.
over the last 50 years of my life and say that it has been true. And there's been plenty of times I didn't have a job, no income, and bills to pay. But yet here I am, and I did it. Or it
Yeah.
happened. It didn't that I did it. I fought the world and I won the battle. It happened. It worked in
At
all
some
kinds
point,
of
you
ways.
must have like relaxed. Well, either you totally stress and you go out and grab, 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 and you panic, you make something happen, or there's a part of you that can pivot in a place of peace, in a place of trust, and know it's going to work out. And what can I do? It takes action, like all
It
these things,
does.
like
It takes full
being,
participation. It
yeah,
does.
like being in the flow of you isn't going to sit back and go, and it's just all going to come to me magically. It does come to you magically, but not by you being a little limp thing sitting there. You've got to like engage in life. You got to like, all right, I'm going to like, there's opportunities for me out there. How do they come to me? They come to me by me proceeding.
Engaging.
And sometimes
Engaging.
knocking on the
Yeah.
door,
Saying
hey,
yes.
here I am.
Exactly. Exactly. That's being like a little kid too, isn't it?
Yeah, they're not, and thank God I've never suffered from shyness about that. It's just like if there's something that I feel like compelled, this is part of what I feel like I fit in my future and all this stuff is like, man, I go knock on the door. I'm like, here I am. And then he's like, do the other party gets to choose if it works for them or not, but I'm not gonna back away on that. I go and like you make your own opportunities, but you're not making it from this grabbing, desperate place. You're grabbing at a place because you see the opportunity. It's different, right?
It is different. It is
So
different. Once you experience, and again, here, the people listening to this know damn well what we're talking about. All we're doing is saying yes. That is a real thing. And here's two dummies that are working our way following that path, and it seemed, and we're still sitting here smiling and laughing.
we
We're either
are.
idiots or we're really wise.
So let me ask you this, Maurice, and then we'll kind of wrap up here because I think we've been going a good hour and a half.
Close.
So tell me about like that experience in your life where everything was just looked pretty bleak,
Oh
and
boy.
like around how old were you, and how did you come out of
I had several of those, so I have choices
it?
I can pick from.
Which is the best example of
Uh,
what to do?
wow. I think probably I was in my late 30s, I would say. I would say that, or early, probably my late 30s. And without going in, because Jesus, my wife left me, not because I did anything, it was a thing.
This was
And
your
my
first
daughter,
wife.
like, yeah, my first wife. And my young, and she was only 3 years old, the daughter, or a week before actually. And I had a house and a job. So I had that whole year to deal with all of that. And then I lost, and then they closed the plant I was working at in a small community in the mountains of North Carolina, and I had no job. And and I and holy shit, what the hell am I going to do? Well, I said yes to whatever showed itself up, and somehow or other it worked. That's just at the physical level. But in the end, I remember the thought occurred to me. I remember saying something to a guy when a friend of hers from high school, because it was her community, not mine. I remember telling him he was preaching the Bible to me, and I looked at him and I said, John, I said, I know I'll always have enough. And I was probably around 36 or 37 years old when I said, I still remember saying that to him. And, I keep looking back and I've always had enough. And there's been times when I had to fill my gas tank, oil. I had a 500-gallon oil tank in the front yard for the house. I had a tri-level home, a couple of thousand square feet, 4 bedroom, 2 bath. It was a nice home in that town. And I had no job. My wife had left me, and my dollars in the bank weren't that heavy at that time, if you will. And I still somehow managed to get it. And I didn't have to borrow the money either from my parents, which was an option, but I just would not do that
Yeah.
for various reasons. The point being, it still worked. Somehow or other, I made it through. And that was a cold ass winter up there too. So that was probably the lowest point. It literally was. I remember I was sitting I used to go up to Shoney's, this was the name of it. It was a, a restaurant in town, and talk with people because I like to do that and they like to do that too. So, I was sitting there talking to them, and one guy, and I was discussing that situation. I remember doing it. And one of the guys at the table looked at another guy. He said he'll never ask his parents. He'll eat glass before he'll do that. And and that's the truth. I would. There's no way in hell I would have done that.
I like that's interesting. You should share that because I always, from the very start, I started when I was still in college. I started my first business and I was always took care of myself, never asked for any money. And then there was a point from no money from my parents. I worked with banks and stuff. My dad taught me how to develop trust with banks so I can
Mm-hmm.
give a credit line and all of that to build my business. But when I was in my late 40s, and I've never really talked about this, but I had some severe back issues, scoliosis. And it got to a point before I had major surgery on it that I had a hard time functioning. And my parents came and financially helped me. And I tell you what, it was the first time ever in my life that I had somebody financially supporting me. And it was a blessing. It was really strange for me. I was going to say it was just really strange because I'd never done that. I had supported some marriages, relationships. So I supported them with my work. I was always like the supporter, the one that supported people. So for me to accept support, it was a little tough, because it was all right, but these are circumstances I can't control. I'm kind of incapacitated, and I need help, and I got help from my parents. And
Well, you were that normally
yeah,
is the case. I don't really talk about them all that much ever anyway, even to my close friends. However, that was a different situation, and it was a whole lifetime of life. And no, I learned what not to be by them.
yeah.
I'll leave it that way. I learned how not to be.
I did a lot of those lessons from my parents, but they also had some beautiful things about them. It was
Of course,
like most
everybody
people,
does.
it was a mixed bag. It was definitely a mixed bag,
Yeah.
and I look back and I see how, I personally have had the experience of knowing that I chose my parents. So I can say that confidently for me, I know that. And I can see the beautiful gifts of their different, grossly different personalities. So different. So different. They never should have been together. They're so different. They never could work it out, but they stayed together. I don't know if that was a blessing or not. But anyways, these traits that make me who I am today. And there was the things to overcome from it because they had definitely had both extreme, childhoods of trauma and stuff. So, anyways, we do the best. The bottom line is not about my story, is about that we do the best we can given what we're given, and not just sit there, oh, me. It's like, no, it's like, okay, what can I do with it?
Yeah,
I've got lemons. How much lemonade can I make? Or maybe I need a
exactly.
lemon drop. Maybe I need, what do let's make something out of you because every person, well, we're going to say every person is an immortal incarnate. but whether every person is or isn't, it's not for me to judge. So we'll just say every person
You go
is.
with that assumption. It's
Let's
not
go
for
with
you
that
to judge.
assumption. It's not for me to judge that they're here for a divine purpose, a much bigger purpose. And, and if what our conversations can help inspire people, right, Maurice, that will
Yes,
inspire them.
that's the
We want,
intent of this.
yeah,
Is to, just to open, say yes to the future, not no.
yeah,
If you can just change that attitude and not be looking for attack all the time, but looking for opportunity. Just in that, the world
yeah,
will change for you around you as you do have influence of your environment. Now, it's not like, well, there's this tactic, that tactic, and the other. It just seems to work that way. And probably some
yeah.
scholar somewhere's got a book written, with all the steps and all that shit. But I don't. I'm talking from what seems to have worked and what I've seen work with others. People who say yes to the future usually enjoy and prosper to the degree that it's possible for them to do so. People that are constantly on the defensive and saying no to things are usually not happy. They're not.
Mhm.
They're always they're protective. They're shriveled up.
Yeah.
And given that choice, what would I rather be? I'd rather be open than closed.
Don't be a shriveled up old prune. Don't
True.
do it. Open up. There's the juice of life in.
Exactly. Let it
Oh
flow.
my God, let it flow. Oh, I just love you, Maurice, and I love these conversations, and I enjoy them immensely.
Good. I do too. I do too.
And I guess today we could just say, kind of bottom lining a lot of it. We started out talking about symbols, and then we went into just the world being a reflection of you. It is symbolic of you. If we look at everything around us as a symbol of, your inner state, we take responsibility for that. And that is it's your choice. I mean, you can or don't have to. It's not any sweat off my back, Maurice, of anybody else's. It's your back, and what do you choose? And you've got choice. Oh my God, even if you think you have no choices and you're trapped, you have a choice for something. You can change the way you think. You can change the way how you orient your heart. Are you orienting it towards the lack of or towards the abundance possibilities? And you just start making shifts, make those choices within you, and then start to see how those choices can unfold in your life. And that's at a gross
Yeah,
level.
and take that freaking yeah, but out of your language as much as is possible. And when you catch yourself doing it, catch yourself. Or when you
Yes,
see yourself doing it, stop yourself. You
stop.
have that choice too.
You do. You do. Just stop it. Dang it. There is no yeah buts. You just defined your realm.
That just
That's
reminds me
your
of that
realm.
Bob Newhart skit from probably 30 years ago. Where he gets this woman comes into it. He's a psychiatrist. He's got an office. A woman comes in and she listed all kinds of stuff that's wrong and going on in her life. And he says, I have two words for you. Stop it. And she just looks at him. And then she goes on some more and he says, I'm going to say it again. It's a skit that's available on freaking YouTube.
Oh my God.
I'll tell you what, I'll find it and I'll put it in the comments. I'll put the
Oh,
link to it in
please
it is so
do.
funny. It is only about a 5 minute sketch if at all. He did it on television. It's hilarious and it gives that
Right.
message.
He
Freaking
was
stop it.
he was one of my favorites. I saw him live when I was in college. He came to our campus, and there's nothing on the stage, and there was a little chair sitting there. It may have been
Yeah,
a little table and a glass of water. That was it. And he just kind of boop, 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 comes walking in, just kind of meekly him, and he sits in the chair and he just starts talking. Oh my God. So stinking funny.
yeah,
And
he
the
was funny.
deadpan low key. Oh my God, that was just great. I don't think he's been around for a while now, but
Probably not. I have to look it up. But well, he's
yeah,
he comes from the generation that preceded me.
yeah. I don't think he's been around. But anyway, super fun. I'd love it. Put it in the comments. And as always, everybody share your comments with us. Maurice and I look at every single one and we respond, if a
Yep.
response is needed. We love to do that. And be sure to like, share with friends, always looking to expand our viewership. Anyways, this is just kind of our talking. Like, yeah, I'm sure you all have got friends where you sit down and you have these kind of conversations. Maurice and I decided one day, is like, I just love talking to this man. I think this should be like a weekly thing. I think we should just do it on a regular basis. And, you know,
And
um,
I said yes.
he said, yeah, exactly. He said, yeah. So here we are. Yay. All right, everybody. As always, blessing and peace from within. And we will see you next week.